Mums, getting back in the gym after having your latest bub isn't easy. You're constantly tired, your body doesn't feel the same, and you feel guilty for taking that time away for yourself. But it's going to be one of the most important and most impactful things that you can do for yourself and then also for your kids. Today we've got Lily back on the show, and we're going to be sharing her story of going from having a second bub to hitting lifetime PRs again, and really just exploring the principles and the pieces that she used to help do that so we can guide other mums to doing the same as her. Lily, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're starting fast. So, Lil, let's go a little bit of background. Obviously, we talked last time, you've had a big history of training, like from where you first got started to what was that transition like in going from where training was obviously a big part of your identity to then having a patch where obviously your training was going to be very limited for a period of time, and then the pieces that you had to go through in that journey to get back to where you are right now? I know that's a loaded question.
That's a lot.
Let's just start small.
Yeah. So I had my first baby, Maya, in 2020. And yeah, I was training all the way through up until COVID. So I actually fell pregnant, I think, like week 3 of COVID and the pandemic in England. So I went from training 5 to 6 days a week to like no training. So I had fallen pregnant. COVID had happened. We had some weights and stuff at home, but my training completely changed throughout that first pregnancy. And it was really hard for me. I gained like 35 kilos, which I did not anticipate. Everyone says, yeah, you gain about 10 to 15 kilos in your pregnancy. And that was probably the first shock was.
Is that real? Is that what people say?
That's what people say. I'm like, how do you gain 10 to 15 kilos? I gained 30 to 40.
10 to 15 seems very small.
I know, it's like the size of the baby, right?
Yeah.
Anywho, so that was the first shock, and I wish more people talked about realistic weight gain because my experience was I just gained a lot of weight. So that was probably the first shock to the system was having Maya, having my first bub, and then being left in a body that completely felt foreign. And also, I guess to add on, I had quite a traumatic birth experience. So that impacted my return to exercise, the way that I experienced my body. The pain that I had for the first 6 weeks was pretty intense. And it really limited what I could do. But I also rely on movement to regulate my mental health. So it was a very interesting journey that first time around compared to my second child who was born in what year are we? 2025. She was born in 2024. And I was able to train all the way through that pregnancy to coming out of that second postpartum period and feeling a lot more prepared and a lot more, I guess, able and less pain. And also it was a less traumatic birth. So every birth is very different.
Yes, let's not get into birth stories on the pod. That might be a bit graphic for me being able to handle.
I couldn't imagine sharing my birth story with you, Jacob, so don't worry.
Yes, let's not go there.
But just so there's context for the other mamas listening,
yeah, it's a very normal part of the journey, and sometimes there is going to be easier ones than others. And like I know the same with Jess. The difference between like Millie and Max's birth is quite significant, and the whole pieces alongside that there, and then that obviously influences getting back to training, what you can do, how long it takes you. And then I guess when training's such a big part of your identity too, it can be a really challenging point to then like how long you do have to stay away from the things that have been supporting your mental health for years and years in the past. What do you feel like was do you feel like the physical barriers or the mental barriers were more difficult for you to go through?
I would say personally physical. I think because I had such a big training base, I had, I guess, a naive expectation that I would come out of birth and feel relatively good and like I would still recognize my body. But the best way to explain that experience was I felt so foreign in my own body. Like I felt so uncoordinated. I felt so like loose and just I felt like I had zero strength or control, and it was very humbling, and I'm so grateful for the process now because I feel like I can emphasize and understand beginners in the gym who potentially they're stepping foot for the first time, like I understand what it feels like to feel foreign in that space. And then second for new mums as well. Like it is such a humbling experience, and it's really scary if you don't have the right support systems or you don't have the, I guess, self-compassion to like coach yourself through that. And I also feel like my first experience, I put a lot of pressure on myself. Like I tried to rush the process. Because my identity was so held in training and being a strong person, the first pregnancy I found a lot harder compared to the second. I feel like the second time I was able to take my time, not rush the process, and know that time is my best friend in sense of like healing. And you will find some version of yourself again. She might look different, she might feel different, and that's okay. But it was never about getting back to who I was. It was about rebuilding and figuring out who I was in this new season.
Yeah, and that obviously adds a big part of the complexity too. Is like you're then responsible for a little person that's then comes into it. There is like squeezing in the training. Like I've talked in the past, like from going from when we didn't have kids, it was like, we could just stay at the gym all day. Like, oh, I've got extra work to do, I've got extra training to do, sweet, I can just stay at the gym. And when you go through, once the kids are there, then it's like, and probably more so and more difficult for the mums than it is for the dads there. It's like, it's difficult to then go, all right, well, I've only got this amount of time to carve out. And then you add to that, on top of that, you've got how your body's shifted and all of those things. So it's definitely not an easy phase for a lot of mums go through, right?
100%. And I think depending on the mum and her journey as well, like not being able to be away for a baby for long stretches of time. So like a lot of the training for the first, I would say like three-ish months minimum was in the lounge room. Like when baby was either napping or on me, like you just have to lower your expectations, I think is the biggest thing. And surrender was a big word that I clung to when I couldn't train the way that I used to, which is what you said. I could go to the gym for hours and take my time, and I really loved that. But when I had kids, I couldn't do that. Like I didn't have the time or space. I have more time now that they're older, but yes, those first months and early years, you have to be efficient with your training.
So let's get a little bit tactical on this. Like, where do you start? And I know that's a broad question, depending on I guess where you start is probably going back to what did the pregnancy, what did exercise look like in that stage there. But if we were taking a new mum on this journey now, like what would be some of the things during the pregnancy that we would sort of try to encourage so that we can then look towards afterwards, and then we'll go from there? Yeah,
I think during pregnancy, if possible, if there's capacity, just some form of movement will help the postpartum period, but also just carving out that routine whilst you're pregnant before your first, second, third or consecutive babies. It just helps mum have that routine and have that mental release and space for herself, I think is really important. And I think just having strength foundation, so your squats, breathing, core and pelvic floor control is really important, and that helps with all of your postpartum, and it just helps that recovery, I think, a lot easier on the mum as well. Then when you get into postpartum, starting could look so different for everyone. It might be a walk with baby. That was me. Like the first 3 months was just getting out for a walk. And then I did a postpartum baseline program, which it was literally just breathing exercises. So I think start small is probably the key thing, and start somewhere. Like you have to choose something and start somewhere, and just be gradual with it and be kind to yourself.
And I guess that sort of hints into is probably not putting the high expectation on what it should look like at that stage. There's and particularly if you've got your training history in the past before that, is what's a lot of weightlifting, a lot of your CrossFit background, all those things. Your training obviously looked very different to that when you did get to that point. Was that difficult? Was that hard to sort of get used to, or how did you work through that?
I think again, the first postpartum was definitely a lot harder because I had this idea in my head of how I would experience postpartum, and you have obviously social media is great, but it can also, you're comparing yourself to people who are completely different to you. So I think for me, I had to just stay in my lane and ignore everyone else and go off my own body and my own experiences, and I think trusting yourself is a big thing. You know your body best, you know what feels right, you know the pace that feels right. Only you can truly understand what your body and mind is going through. And like I said, every child is different, every baby. So sleep, energy, capacity, mental health, postpartum depression, which I experienced in my first postpartum, was really hard. But again, I'm very lucky that I use exercise as a tool to manage my mental health. So for me, it was always a non-negotiable, but I completely understand for mums that potentially haven't worked fitness into their normal routine, or just haven't been able to have that time and space. It would be that much harder to then incorporate it post-baby. But it was like a lifeline for me. So
yeah, for sure. we see it so often with so many of the mums that are coming back in, and there is sometimes that like desire to get back in sooner because it is managing their mental health. When sometimes they do need to just be slow starting, start where they're at right there. So what did the progression look like for you? Like once you did get started, you said you started with those like the walks and the breathing exercises. What did that sort of process end up looking towards? And I guess from there, like how long did you take until like you were then back doing things that you felt like was, I guess, meeting that identity of where you saw yourself as an athlete and that side of things beforehand?
So I started going back to the gym fairly early on, but it was mainly body weight stuff. So it was things like your air squats and just making sure, I think the first thing was making sure that I wasn't having any symptoms of like prolapse or TMI, but just like you're leaking and all of that. So making sure that after each session, I was not sorer than what I went into. So it was just kind of like a little checklist. So it was body weight squats, knee push-ups, nothing overhead for the first couple weeks. And then, for example, like learning to run again was so hard for me because you have to keep in mind pre-babies, I was like 70 kilos and I'd come out at like 95. So simple things like the weight through my joints, running like 100 to 200 meters was a lot of my body. So I would start by 200 meters, walk, and then do that progressively, make sure I had no pain after, no pelvic floor pain, ligament pain, all of that. And then I would just slowly build from there. So it was kind of just like a progressive thing every week. Started with 1 session a week, built up to 2. It was just like building blocks. That's how I visualize it in my mind, is you just keep stacking. And if something feels painful or off, I would just step back and go back to the regression that I was doing before. So it was almost like a checklist.
Yeah, so it sounds like having flexibility in the approach is important.
Yes. Yeah, not being rigid.
Which is difficult. That's not easy.
It is,
right?
yeah.
Particularly when you know where you want to go to. Like it can be difficult to sort of have to step back on those things, right? What about, where do you feel like, and you've obviously worked with other mums in this journey as well, what do you feel like some of the mistakes that come up in this sort of stage can be?
I think too much too soon, and that's, I think, a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves as mums of we expect ourselves to be at a certain place by a certain time. So that could look like if we're in a gym environment, and let's say, for example, a mum is still fairly new out of her postpartum period and she's just re-entered the gym and, I don't know, let's just say there's sit-ups, for example. Like in my mind, sit-ups postpartum early are just not, they don't do anything for the core postpartum. Like you're better off doing your dead bugs or your breathing or pelvic floor exercises. So I think it's just mums not having the education or the tools or knowing what the steps are to get them back into that, or I think taking the pressure off them. Like you don't need to be doing what everyone else is doing, and it's not because you're fragile. You're fucking resilient. You've just given birth to a human or humans, but it's more so just about, again, building blocks. So starting with the basics, and if you build a strong foundation, it sets you up for a really strong postpartum later down the track. If you rush it, you potentially run into issues a lot quicker than what you think, and then it pulls you back in the long term. So be patient.
And I can't say from exact experience, but I feel like when you do skip those steps at the start, and then when you've got a bit of a roll on, then you have to go backwards, like, and take 5 steps back instead of just starting where you should be. Sometimes it's mentally harder than just being slow at the start, even though you want to jump forward. As having to go back 5 steps is a lot harder to mentally check into, I was doing this, but now it's come up to this as the barrier. So what about, I know we talked about the training side of stuff. What about nutrition alongside that? What do you see happens in that phase there? Because obviously, like, some mums are still going to be breastfeeding in that time. Then if they're starting their exercise routines, like there's a lot of demands on the mum from a nutrition perspective on that there. What did you do in that phase to manage your approach?
First of all, I'll say I'm not a nutritionist, so I can only speak, like you said, from my experience. The main thing that I felt personally was I just felt extremely depleted of all nutrients post-birth. So, and I could feel that, like my nails were brittle, my hair was falling out, and I know other mums can relate to that, and you just feel very depleted in general. So for me, my focus was just eating. I think that's probably the baseline thing. If you have multiple children or more than one, and even just a baby that relies on you solely to survive, it can be so hard to feed yourself. But if you do not fuel yourself, it'll impact your milk flow, but it also just impacts your overall mental state and ability to function. So for me, I kept it simple in the survival days, was just eat, make sure I'm eating something. And a lot of that came down to frozen meals in the freezer, friends dropping off food, husband making me breakfast, making sure I'm eating. Then as I kind of came out of like the fogginess or the survival mode, it was then like nutrients. So like whole foods, making sure that I'm getting my micronutrients in through color, vegetables, and then protein. So I tried not to complicate it. And again, it was like building blocks. So just eat. Then it was make sure I'm eating good food. So whole foods and variety of color. And then it was protein to support my healing.
I imagine there's some pressure there, or like maybe internal desire as well, of like trying to get back to your pre-baby weight can come up in that stage. And there's been conversations that I've had with clients in the past there, like when they're wanting to get back to that quickly, but then balancing that out with then making sure that you've got enough sustenance. That's, I guess, my personal preference when I've worked with people in the past is going, well, let's focus on just how you feel right now. It's not a time to track. It's not like we might have some awareness tracking, but it's not necessarily let's actually count the calories. It's like let's make sure that we're having enough sustenance. Is that something that you see pop up as well, like where there's a desire to get back to the pre-baby image, like, and how that sort of balances out with then making sure that you can stay healthy in that phase too?
Yeah, 100%. It's a massive mental battle to consistently go back and forwards with yourself of, I want to be here, but again, it's patience, but you want to just get that thing. It's the whole like microwave situation of I just want it and I want it now. But it's respecting the process and it's respecting the time that it takes to get there. And I think you hit the nail on the head with just focusing on how the mum feels first. So it's really important, like taking the person for who they are in front of you. You know, what is their history? Have they tracked calories before? Do they care to be back at pre-baby weight? Because I personally didn't care about reaching pre-baby weight, but I just wanted to feel better in my body. That was the main thing. And then everything just snowballed from there. It also depends on timeline. So, you know, how fresh postpartum are they? Is it something that we should be looking at, or is it just about nurturing the mother and really looking after her and prioritizing movement and just her mental health? And then we can just layer things on top of that. Because I also don't want to demonize women wanting to feel fit and healthy and lose fat. I think we've kind of swung from like skinny versus strong, and like we've then swung the other way of, which is amazing, like body positivity, but then it's almost demonized dieting, which is something that I've had to go through as well, and just finding the balance of, at the end of the day, is what do you want and why do you want it, and how does it support you in your life? Yeah,
100%. I think that's it's very relevant to like there is that balance, and it is, as you said, it's knowing the individual where they are at that time that matters, instead of having a clear this is the one approach. And I think for like should be always be the first thing, right? Like I think if you can be feeling good, you're healthy first, then I don't think it matters too much of like if you can do that, maintain that while then being in a slight deficit to then get back to the goals of the pre-baby weight, then that's fine. If it is starting to then suffer from a health perspective to do so, or your energy's tanked, you're always tired as it is, maybe it's not the right move for right now. And that's probably just knowing the timing of the places and being able to make a smart decision for yourself of what's going to be the right thing for where you are right now, I think is one of the big pieces there. What about, I guess, like we'll dive into like, it sounds like consistency seems to be the rhythm, like finding where that is and then finding like stacking the habits as opposed to trying to get to the outcome. That seems to be like a common trend that seems to be alongside this. Is that how you feel like you sort of tracked along where you try to get towards like, all right, cool, I'm just doing this that's going to help me move towards this step, and then when it feels right, then I can move to the next piece?
Yeah, I think it was always about being present in the journey and not focusing on just the destination, but you have to have some sort of goalpost in mind. So for me, I kind of blocked it into different seasons of postpartum. So like I said, that first 3 months is just surviving, but also making sure I'm looking after me. So that was just food, walking, very basic and minimal effective dose for that, because you're just trying to keep your child alive. And then once you come out of that fogginess, for me, it was all about just rebuilding strength. So it was like functionality over what I look like. It was functionality over certain targets. And it was just about becoming healthy again, because you're so sleep deprived. You potentially haven't trained for a certain amount of time depending on what your birth was like. So I feel like the 3 to 6 months was just rebuilding. And then the further away personally that I got from birth, the more energy I felt like I had. And it wasn't really until I hit that 6-month mark that mentally I felt like I could enter in a slight deficit and start to focus on dropping a little bit of fat, because for me personally in my body I was just carrying too much and it was impacting my running, my joints, my ability to play netball, which was a big joy factor for me. So my motivation for fat loss was what it could help me do in my day-to-day life and the person that I envision myself to be. But yeah, it's all process, and yeah, I don't really know what I'm saying. My brain.
No, I get exactly. So where was the point where you felt comfortable to sort of step it up again? Because I do know when we first met, when you first joined the team, it wasn't that long after that then you pulled some ridiculous deadlift after that point there. And it was only then that I was like, hold on, Harmony's only very young. You were back to that what seemed like externally very quickly. So what was the point maybe, and it was probably different for both children, but what was the signs that you felt like you were starting to feel a little bit more physically like yourself, to where you could start to do the things that you used to be able to do?
I think the signs that I was ready was I had enough energy. So I'd been fueling myself adequately. And also I was just excited to train again. I think there is such power in mum strength, and I know it's so cliche, but once you've gone through birth and recovery, my resilience is through the roof. My ability to be uncomfortable, although I'll still not do a stone for you.
It's going to happen, guys. It's going to happen.
My ability to withstand discomfort is so much more than pre-babies. It's just something about, I say to mums all the time, I joke about it, it's mum strength. And I really can't put my finger on it. Obviously, yes, I train and I've got a big training history there, but I am way stronger now than what I was pre-kids. And a lot of it is consistency. So getting in, training every week despite how I feel. Obviously, there's weeks where the kids are sick and I don't train, and that's just part of life. Progressive overload, following a program, having coaches, so all of that plays into it. But yeah, I don't know what it was. I feel like it was really fast with Harmony too. I feel like I kind of got to, how old was Harmony? I think she was 10 months when we moved here. And I felt like at that point, I was just lifting some heavy stuff and I felt really good.
Yeah, you pulled was it 170 or somewhere there on the deadlift, which is...
That was later on. I think Harmony was a year and a half. That was at the Bergs and Barbells.
No.
Oh, no,
pulled
before.
One,
Oh, yeah, it was 170 in December. So that was nine months postpartum. Yeah. Honestly, I don't really know. I felt badass. I'm going to tell you that much. I felt strong as F, but also I'm carrying 10 kilos more in my body. So it's relative strength as well. So obviously I'm heavier than pre-kids. It's mental, physical, but I just felt good. I felt strong.
So it sounds like the sign was you felt like you were ready. You felt like the fire was there again. You felt like you were able to get a bit of a rhythm with your training, and you felt strong when you were doing it, and that gave you the green light to go, okay, cool, I can start progressing these things again.
Yeah.
And you've pretty much nearly hit lifetime PBs in most things since that, since having kids, right?
I think my clean and jerk is the only one, and my snatch is a kilo off.
Well, that's where we're going straight after this. Back to the gym, guys. Lily's going to break some PRs again.
But I've actually hit more on my deadlift and squat. I've never done that before, and my bench. So they're all lifetime PBs post kids. Yeah, which is pretty cool.
I want to highlight that just because I think a lot of people, and this is parents overall, kind of get the idea is your own endeavors are kind of done once you've got kids. You're always going to be busy, work's going to be in the way, the kids are so busy, they take up so much of this time, you're probably not going to be in that shape that you used to be. Whereas it's very possible, if you follow the right path and you can be flexible in the approach, that you can be your fittest ever, your strongest ever. You just have to maybe do it a little bit differently to how you did it the first time.
Yeah.
And I think, at least personally, my way of getting stuff done when I was younger was just do more.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily do better. And that's where it's changed a little bit as I've gotten older. It's all right, I need to be a little bit more targeted because I don't have unlimited time to train. So it's like I've got to be intentful when I'm doing every set. I've got to actually think about like what's the right thing that I need as opposed to just doing anything. And I think when you are in that earlier stage, it's a lot of like everyone in their 20s, like you just kind of go ham and train your butt off and it kind of just works out.
Yeah.
And I think further down that track, like it sounds like for you as well, was then being smart about what progression you make. Like it's not, I'll just throw another 10 kilos on the bar, we'll just test it out. It's just going, all right, what's the right thing for today?
100%. I think 33-year-old Lily would smash 23-year-old Lily in every single area, which is fucking epic.
We need to, like, when AI gets progressed to that level of, like, where we can, like, take little fights between that, like...
Which is pretty sick. I never would have envisioned that. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, we'll take some of your old lifting videos, some of your new ones, and then put it into ChatGPT, and it'll set up a fight between young Lily, old Lily.
Bring it on.
Oh, that's great. So... I think the last thing I want to wrap up on this one, because I don't want to take too much. I think we've nailed a lot of the pieces. It does seem overall is like making sure we're patient in the journey, making sure we're not trying to rush it, and understanding where you are right now, where you want to go, and then what the right steps are, and knowing that it is going to be a balance between both the physical and the mental. And then alongside that is making sure that you are making small steps, small progressions, supporting yourself through the journey, making sure you have the support around you too, seems to be a lot of these pieces. The last piece that I do want to touch on is like, did you wait for the perfect time? Like,
no, there is no perfect time with kids, as you know. Life is always crazy. Life is always hectic. There's always someone sick or something happening. I think it just needs to be a non-negotiable to some degree. Like, I can't be completely naive and be like, everyone needs to train. Like, there's been days and weeks where it's not possible, but 90% of the time it's a consistent factor. It just might look different depending on how much energy I have or capacity. So, for example, like the last 10 weeks since I've been doing Nathan's fat loss phase, obviously I've had a lot less energy. So I've been like my RPE in the gym, so rate of perceived exertion, I've taken from like a 9 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10. And I just don't, like, I'm not trying to focus on building strength right now. And I think it's just to reiterate that there's different phases of training and different phases of life. So when I'm feeling good and strong, so when I'm hitting PBs, I'm training consistently hard at like an 8 out of 10 RPE, but that requires me to be well recovered, eating well, sleeping well, and all of those factors do have to kind of align in order for that to happen. And if it's not that season of my life, then I focus on other things. So it might be running, which is where I'm at the moment. So I'm very much like a seasonal trainer in that sense, and I very much go off what is happening in my life. But then also when I need to dig in, and like other people, like dig in and put the work in, you have to train hard and push the needle. And
even like, so going back to in that postpartum phase, like, were you waiting for perfect then too, or no? I
needed it, Jacob. I needed to get out.
Like, how did you fit it in? How did you make it work for yourself? For a mum that might be going through that right now, how would you help them navigate that?
At first, it was just do it at home where I can, and then I think it's important to have a conversation with your support system. So whether that's your husband, partner, parents, or whoever it is so important to have a support person, because my husband knew that I needed to get out of the house. So when he would come home, we would just swap, and I'd be like, I need to go to the gym. So I think it's very important for mums to communicate that they need this and you deserve it. Like, you don't have to ask for it. You deserve to take an hour out to go look after yourself, or 30, 45 minutes. But I never really experienced mum guilt, and I know a lot of mums do. But I feel like if I didn't do that, I would be, I would not be a nice person. So I never felt guilty, because I was like, if I don't do this, I'm going to be a freaking menace at home, and I'm not going to be happy, and my whole family's going to be miserable. So I almost framed it in that way, where taking the hour for myself meant that the rest of the 23 hours I was a bit more mentally stable for the family. So yeah, talk to a support person. Make sure you have someone to support you. Otherwise, take the kid to the gym and pass them to the trainer.
Yeah, we've all stood in that.
We've all held many babies.
Yeah. I've had many babies cry on me. Most of them are actually pretty good. Actually,
they're pretty good.
I think most
they
babies,
love it.
Most babies like me. Every now and then,
do they?
I have evidence. So we're going to wrap up on that though, but I think that, like, you nailed it there. It's like, it's making sure that you set yourself up to succeed in that setting, and whether it's the making sure that the people around you know what you need in that phase there, making sure that you've got the right environments there. Like if it is for that phase, it is doing at home workouts and you can pull it up on YouTube or an app or something like that, and that's the best thing for you, then perfect. If you need the environment of going to the gym, so you've got that space away from where you can not be mum for half an hour, then that might be the right thing for you too. And it's understanding where that flexibility that you need to work in with that so you can get what you really want out of it, and then be that person in the other 23 hours a day that you want to be for your kids. So we're going to wrap up on this, but if you're a mum that's listening to this and you're ready to feel strong again, we're about to drop intakes into our first Strong Mum Transformation of 2026 that you'll be guided by Lily, Jess, Claire, our team of mums, to help you get the most out of your training and really navigate that phase, working your way into not only getting your strength back, but building the new version of you that's the stronger version, that's the one who's able to show up for the kids the way they want to and to show up for themselves. So if you're interested in that, just shoot us a message on Instagram at NewstrengthHQ with the keyword strong mum, and I'll do it. We'll, if you've listened to the pod, you mentioned that you listened to the pod, we'll offer you a special discount in our first intake of 2026, and then you'll be able to meet Lily and go through, she'll guide you on your journey back. Lily, thanks for being on the pod, and I know I sprung this one on you on short notice today, but you nailed it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Listeners, we'll see you guys next week.